Hey, this is Michael from Frozen Soul, and you're watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 146, and today's guest we're talking to Michael Munday. He is the guitarist for the band Frozen Soul, death metal band based out of Texas. Today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal, pretty much the history of Frozen Soul, and their new album Glacial Domination, which is out now through Century Media Records. So without further ado, let's go talk to Michael. So what's up, guys? I'm here with Michael Munday from the band Frozen Soul. How are you doing today, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. It's great to be able to talk with you today. So kind of like the format is, I want to talk about like your musical history as well as goes through the history of the band and talk about the new album. But before we go into that, take you back to young Michael Munday. So what were like the first bands growing up that got you into metal? What made you want to start playing guitar?
Me playing guitar kind of like predates metal a little bit. So when I was like 8, 9 years old, I was like super into like Blink-182 and Green Day.
Me too.
And yeah, I heard the riff and damn it, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. And so like it's been almost 20 years now. I think I was like 9 or something. My grandma got me
Yeah.
one of those guitar packs for Christmas. And just some really shitty like Stratocaster knockoff with like a shitty little 5 watt amp. And basically just like taught myself how to play. And after that, it wasn't a few years until I like started getting into metal. I remember so like growing up, I grew up like in the church and shit. And we used to like go to people's like houses for like weekly Bible studies. And one of like the house we would go to, like their like teenage son was like, "Hey, come check this out," because he like knew I was like super into like Green Day and all that. And he was like, "Hey, this is some like real shit. Check this out." And he like shows me like Trivium and Lamb of God, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Nice.
it just like totally like rocked my world. And I'd always listen to like my parents like growing up. I'd always listen to like Metallica, but also always like stuff from like Black Album on.
Yeah.
Nothing ever before that. So I was like kind of
Yeah.
familiar with like Metallica and like Megadeth a little bit, but yeah, like Trivium and Lamb of God are like what like got me
Yeah.
like into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and little did you know Matt Heafy would end up working with you later on. So we'll get there in a moment.
Yeah, I know, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's cool because I was into like pop punk too, like Blink 182, Sum 41, Simple Plan, Newfound Glory, Good Charlotte. Like I feel
Mhm.
like that's like that before I got into metal, and I still like Blink 182. I'm stoked that they got Tom back. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So yeah, and I was like 10-year-old me is excited. I would actually go see them on their tour, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
of course,
want to. It's just like
yeah.
I'm always on tour, and also it's just fucking expensive.
Yeah, have you seen like the prices? Like people like resell it like, for like double the price, which I think is bullshit.
Yeah, scalpers can eat shit.
Yeah, fuck them. Yeah. So kind of like when I was doing my research on Metal Archives, because I think you also played bass for some of your old bands. There's Contusion,
Hmm.
Disencumbrance, and Wild Speaker. I'm just curious, like in chronologically,
Hmm.
which one came first?
So Contusions was like the first one out of all that, and that one I actually I play guitar for.
Oh,
So that was like the first band I was ever in, like after high school, first time I ever did like any kind of recording or anything or like wrote music. And it was a fun band, but it wasn't like a great band, I would say. Just being like totally honest. But I had some good times in that band. And after that band kind of like dissipated. Everybody else just had like their own shit going on. And oh, hold on just a second, man.
all right. Check.
Sorry about that. I was getting a call.
All right.
But yeah, after Contusions, I joined this band called Disencumbrance, which is like a brutal death metal band that started like in the '90s here in Texas, and they were active for a little bit in the '90s, and then they like broke up just because other members went on to do different things, and they got back together in like 2014 or something like that, and started playing shows again when we started like writing some new songs, and from there, I joined Wild Speaker, and I also played bass in that band. And I was doing both those bands at the same time for a minute.
Wow.
And yeah, and then when I was in Wild Speaker, we actually, when I was in the band, we got signed to Prosthetic Records. And when that happened, like, it's like, oh, all right, we gotta like kick it into like next gear, like we gotta write an album and just start touring and blah blah blah. And so I left Disencumbrance just because like everyone in that band was like, I love those dudes, but they're all like my parents' age. So they're all like significantly older than me. Like they don't want to tour. They don't want to like really do anything like other than just like play shows here and there. Whereas me, I was trying to like, get out there and like make a name for myself. So Wild Speaker really like wrote a whole album and everything. And I ended up leaving that band just because like it wasn't exactly like the kind of music I wanted to play. It's like more like Black and Crust. I was always like really into like thrash and death metal. And then eventually I met Chad and we started Frozen Soul.
Yeah, because I believe y'all formed in 2018. So how did you get to know like Chad and Sam and everybody?
So Chad and Sam were already friends, and they were like hanging out a lot. So um, I met Chad and subsequently Sam at a Magic the Gathering store here in like the DFW area. I was walking in to go play at like every game store has like a weekly tournament called like Friday Night Magic. Um, it's like nothing like super crazy. It's just like regular tournament every week, every weekend. And I remember walking in and like through the window, I just see this like dude with this huge, slowly we rot like back print on the back of his shirt. I was like, oh, this dude's wearing an obituary shirt. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So him and I like spark up some conversation and like we just play Magic and we end up seeing each other for like a few more weeks because like like we're both playing at the same shop and then eventually I asked him like, hey man, you like want to start a band? And his band, his old band, Vulgar Display, had just broken up, so he like wasn't really jamming with anybody or doing anything. So that was back in like 2016 is like when we like first started jamming together and like the first iteration of Frozen Soul came together. Like that's when we came up with a name and like started writing music. And we jammed with a couple guys. Names are Kyle and Cage. Kyle used to play in a band here called Judiciary. And Cage has played in a bunch of bands, but he's in a band now that's called Earn. They're like a really sick, like hardcore punk band here from Dallas. And we jammed with them for a minute. It just didn't work out. And after that kind of fell through, Chad decided to get his old band In Times, like kind of revive it. Yeah. And I ended up playing guitar for that just because like the old guitar player of that band had it's not really my business to say, but he just gone on to like do some shit. And so we started that band up again. We like wrote and recorded a whole album, did a bunch of shows. And then after that, I had a bunch of riffs left over. And some of them, like In Times, is like way more of a melodic band. And I had a bunch of riffs from that didn't quite like fit the vibe for In Times. So I kind of took those and like rearranged them a little bit for Frozen Soul for like a more like heavy, brutal kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and tell me about like that first demo you did in 2019, Encased in Ice. I was listening to it earlier in preparation for the interview. It's just very raw sounding.
Mm-hmm. So that one, like I said just now, like so that whole demo is basically like leftovers of the band End Times. Those songs just like didn't quite make the cut, and we also down tuned a little bit. Like End Times is in drop B, Frozen Souls in drop A. So we wanted to have like that, like make it sound different in that way, but also like just make the riff sound different.
Yeah.
And that demo, we actually recorded in the jam room that we were renting at the time, and we did it like I think it was like 2 or 3 days before or after Christmas, but it was like during like Christmas week is like when we recorded it, and we recorded it in like 2 days basically, and it was all live except for the bass, I think, and the vocals. But yeah, our homie Slade, he's the one that recorded that. He's recorded he has a band called Pavel Chekhov that he's in, another band called Burning, He's recorded a whole bunch of bands like out here in DFW.
Cool. Oh, and I also like how in the song "Encased in Ice" you did like a sample from the film Legend. What made you decide to do like a sample from that movie in particular?
So that movie in particular, nothing to do with it other than it's just a guy just getting fucking stabbed over and over and over again. Like we
Yeah.
really just like when we were writing the song, we were just like, okay, there's this like kind of like gap right here between like these two different kinds of riffs. So like what do we want to do? Do we want to write like more riffs or do you want to like throw in a sample there? And we were just like, what if it was someone just getting fucking stabbed? And then Chad's like, oh my God. And so one day at my old job, I just went on YouTube for like my entire shift and was just like, man getting stabbed. And just, I was just like looking for like the perfect sound. And then I heard that. I was like, oh, that's fucking brutal. That's going in there.
There, yeah, yeah. Just that whole demo is great. I also love how you also covered Morticians, Witches, Coven, then on
Mhm.
there. What made you guys to cover that song in particular?
We just wanted to have like one more song on the demo. And that one, every cover like we've ever done, it's always been like a spur of the moment, like last second kind of decision. And that one we were just like, all right, this one's like pretty easy to play and it's like just fucking heavy as shit, so let's just do it. So yeah, it was just like spur of the moment thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Love it. Like anytime when like a band does like a cover, or I feel like they sometimes they stick to the original, but sometimes they like to like add their own little spin to it, which in a way almost makes it like their own.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
that's what we like to do with our covers is try to like make it our own. Like that Mortician song in particular, I think there's like a couple measures or something we cut out, like and just to make it a little bit more seamless. And we did the same thing with like Slayer. We slowed our Slayer cover down, and so it's like kind of chopped and screwed almost. And then like
yeah,
the end riff, we kind of like made it our own. Same thing with Entombed. We did our own thing with that too.
yeah. Yeah, then I started you started playing around Texas a little bit. Then of course you got signed to Century Media Records. How did they find Frozen Soul?
Um, so from what I understand, basically like, we put the demo out and then we just start touring. So everybody's like just talking about it. And then Mike Gitter, our A&R guy, the guy that signed us, he basically was like, oh dude, like every day I was like seeing your guys' name just like pop up. So he was like, I literally like couldn't avoid it if I wanted to. So he checked us out, liked the demo, and then he came to he like flew out to Texas to see us play. And we were playing a show with Vader.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and then pretty much like right after that, like we started like talking and like getting the contracts and all that.
Of course, 2021, the debut album, Crypt of Ice. I think it's a really great debut album. One of the best debut albums in like the whole newer death metal scene. So, what was like the thought process going into making Crypt of Ice?
So it was kind of weird, man. So with like Frozen Soul, like we never like expected it to like get as far as it did because In Times was like the band that Chad and I were like really trying to like go for to get the name out there because it's a little bit more marketable because it's like very very melodic. And so when we wrote this, like we were still like pretty fired up, and then we had a bunch of steam going, so we just kind of like kept the momentum going, and then for a while it was just me and Chad writing everything, and I just remember like we were both working like full-time jobs and we were going to our jam space like 11 o'clock every night, leaving at like fucking 3 in the morning, and then doing it all over again like 5 6 days a week. Eventually got to the point like we had like a good chunk of the album done. I'd say like 75% of it. And then we ended up like scrapping a bunch of it just because we were like, yeah, this like just isn't, it's like not strong enough. So we did that all over again. And by that time, like I was incredibly like burnt out because we were, like touring and like working full time still. And it was just like me and Chad like writing everything. And so Chris joined the band in like February of 2020. And then he ended up like helping us like really finish a lot of the songs, and like probably like half the songs on that album like came together and like a month before we went to record it.
Yeah, yeah, like everything, like Merciless, title track, Arctic Stranglehold. I just love like the whole wintry kind of like theme that you have. While it's not like a concept album, same thing with like the new album, but I feel like it has like that kind of like overall vibe of like cold and sort of like death and everything.
Yeah, that's what we're going for.
Sure. So yeah, yeah. I just love this album. That's pretty much how I discovered you guys. And I remember the first time I saw you guys, you did that tour with Dying Fetus and Chelsea Grin, and I was like, wow, that was a great. And that's how I discovered you all, and that's how I became a fan of the band.
Well, fuck yeah, man.
And what was that tour like?
That was a fucking awesome tour. So Dying Fetus has like always been like one of my favorite death metal bands. So of course when we got the call like, hey, like Fetus wants to take you on tour, we're like, yes. We're like, we don't care like when it is, where it is, like we're fucking doing it. And those guys are so fucking awesome, man. Like they're like one of the best bands out there, not in terms of just like how like good they are like musically, but also like how they are as people. Like they take care of like all the bands they tour with, make sure like that you get like the things that you're asking for, make sure that you're like doing good and all that. And they're also just like really fun to like hang out with and like party with. All around, they're just like the like best fucking guys. So it was like a dream come true to like be able to do that tour and also discover like, oh, these guys are like really fucking awesome people too.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel yeah, I agree, and I also love how sort of like the old school kind of like death metal sound has pretty much gotten huge in the last few years. Like newer bands, like even taking that inspiration, like you guys, Crypta, um, Gatecreeper, Necrot, like a lot of those bands heavily have that old school sound that's gotten huge, really in the last few years, almost kind of like making it like adding their own spin to it. So, why do you think it is how it's gotten huge in the last few years?
I think it's like you said, it's like everyone's kind of like doing their own spin on it. Because right now it's like this is gonna like piss a lot of people off, but like death metal is like super accessible now, and that's mostly thanks to like the internet, but also like um, everybody putting their own spins on it and stuff. There's like different sounds that people can like gravitate towards or like really connect with. And so, especially like if there's multiple sounds, so it's just really, like I said, it's really accessible and easy for people to like take it all in, because everybody's kind of like doing their own thing, their own sound.
And yeah, yeah, and I know that some of you guys have also have like a history in like the punk and hardcore, and I also feel like some current death metal bands in the scene have a bit more the overlap with hardcore in particular than any other
Mm-hmm.
time that I've seen. And why do you think that is? And why is it that punk and hardcore guys seem to like age into like the death metal scene?
I mean, it's just kind of inevitable. I mean, all of like heavy music is like connected, like if there wasn't punk, there wouldn't be like thrash metal, and then without thrash metal, there wouldn't be like death metal. So like whether people want to like admit it or not, like it's all like intertwined and connected. Um, so like I said, it's just like inevitable. Like also, it's like heavy music. Like if you like heavy music, you don't like just one specific type of heavy music. You pretty much like almost all of it.
Yeah.
So um, like it also makes it a little more interesting to me, uh, just to have all these different styles kind of like meld together instead of like oh, it's just like let's play fucking blast beats at like 240 beats per minute for like the whole fucking song, and then not like slow it down or anything like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you have like kind of like a thing that you stick with, people say you're repetitive, or if you try to like experiment, people say that you kind of inconsistent, but at the end of the day you got to like stick to what you believe in.
Yeah, and like we've had that already, like with this new album. People are like, oh, it doesn't sound like the first album, but then like if you put out an album that sounds like your first album, they're like, oh, they're not evolving, they're not innovating. It's just like you said, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, yeah, I mean you can't, I mean unless if you're AC DC people will notice.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, but tell me about the new album, Glacial Domination. I love this. Definitely one of my favorite albums so far of this year. era, because usually with like the debut album, you have like your entire life to write it, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came time
Hmm.
to making Glacial Domination, did you felt like pressure to follow up Crypt of Ice?
Um, kind of, but also not really. I mean, there's always pressure regardless, especially like, we're on a pretty big label and they're like kind of giving us a lot of money to like get this done and make it sound like amazing. So there's that sense of pressure, but I felt like pretty confident in myself and also my bandmates that we were going to be able to write like something extremely fucking killer. But also this time around, so like with Crypt of Ice, like I was saying earlier, it was just like me and Chad for a majority of that album, just writing it all. And Glacial Domination, this one is like all five of us in the same room collaborating together on like all these songs. So it's not just like one or two people just like writing a whole song. It's like all five of us writing a whole song together. So everybody has ideas and inputs that they can bring to the table to like make the song better. Um, so it was a lot more of a fun writing process. We got to try a whole bunch of new things that we wouldn't have thought of before because of, Chris is like, oh, let's try to play it like this, play the riff like this, or Matt's like, I'm gonna play the drums like this instead of this. Excuse me. And of course with like Heafy too,
Yeah,
having
yeah.
Heafy on board.
What was it like
Um,
working with him?
oh, it was fucking awesome, man. He's like a super down to earth guy, and he's a very hard worker, but he's not like that shitty boss where it's like, oh, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. He's just like he's like, hey, let's try this, and then if we'll try it, and if we don't like it, we'll say like, hey, like we're not feeling it. He's like, all right, let's move on.
Yeah, because
Like,
I think the producer is almost kind of like the fifth member or sixth member of the band, or if you're in Slipknot, like the 10th member. So I feel like he
yeah,
almost
for
has like
sure.
that kind of like influence on like the album and sort of the music in a way, but you still have like your own stuff that you all write.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and our other co-producer Daniel, he helped with a lot of stuff too. Like the interlude track Annihilation, that's pretty much like all Daniel. And that song like actually came together by accident because so Daniel's like the one that like recorded and mixed everything. So he's like the engineer of the record, but he also like helped us like produce and like do different things with different parts. But we went over to his house one day to like check the mix and we got done like pretty early, so we just kind of started like fucking around with some like synth stuff because we like needed an intro to Glacial Domination, but we were working with that synthwave or darkwave artist, Ghost. I always don't know how to pronounce his name, and I'm always like
Yeah,
I feel so bad, but
I always say
yeah, yeah,
ghost. Blech. I can't even
Ghost,
fuck. I can't even
Ghost,
say it either.
yeah. But yeah, like he was like doing some samples for us for this record, and then our buddy Eric from Plague Years, who also did like a majority of the stuff on Crypt, they like presented some stuff to us, and we were like, that's not quite right. So we like did Annihilation with Daniel, and it just like we were just like, oh my god, it's
Yeah.
so sick.
Yeah, and I think that like the interludes just really just go well. It feels like it just flows in perfectly within the next song and everything. It just works so well with this. I feel like that was
Mhm.
something you wanted to try different with this album, with like the interludes.
Yeah, I mean, we want to. I mean, we had a lot on the first album, Crypt, but these are a little bit different. They're a bit more like calculated, if that makes sense. And like for example, like Frozen Soul and Assimilator, like we specifically were like, okay, we want these to sound like be influenced by like John Carpenter's The Thing, just because that whole song is influenced off of that movie. So we wanted the samples to be like that, and then Atomic Winter, it's about fucking Godzilla versus King Kong. So we had our friend be like, hey, just make it sound like a fucking war zone, and these like just giant like type footsteps in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I also love like Morbid Effigy with John from Dying Fetus doing guest vocals. I heard like Sam actually did a little additional vocals on there too.
Yeah, she did. She did those high screams.
Oh wow, I need to listen to that more. I was trying to like find like live videos of the song, but I would have loved to see her do like the high scream parts live, and maybe if y'all do another tour at Dying Fetus, you could have John come up on stage and do the song. That would be awesome.
Well, actually, when we toured in Europe with them, when we played Berlin, he came out to do that song with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking sick.
Damn, I need to try to find that. I couldn't find any like YouTube videos online.
Yeah, it's from our show in Berlin, so that'll help like narrow it down if you can find it.
Yeah, yeah, but I just love like I said with the different transitions between the tracks. I feel like it really just helps like allows for like the slow build of the music and the overall intentionality with this album. It just flows perfectly. Like I said, it just
Mhm.
like I don't know how this is just perfect.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and in terms of sort of like the album, so can you sort of like shed sort of like some light on the leaps that you took for the last half of the album as sort of like a whole?
So we were kind of like working with Heafy. Like, of course, Trivium is like a humongous band,
Yeah,
and like any band that wants to grow, like obviously we're gonna do like what we want, but we also like want to get our like music into as many ears as possible. And so like we kind of like had we wanted to work with Heafy because Trivium's huge and he knows a thing or two about like writing some music and like getting his music in people's ears. So we kind of like took a more melodic approach to some of these songs, which is something we haven't done with Frozen Soul. Now we've done it, like me and Chad have done it with End Times, but the whole thing was like, oh, End Times is like a super melodic, like earwormy band, and like Frozen Soul is like the heavy, like meathead ass whooper type shit. Um, so we kind of like took that leap, and a lot of people ended up liking it, and a few people like fucking hate it, which I understand. Like it's not for everybody, um, but really it was about just like trying things we haven't done before with Frozen Soul, and just like making it our own and having fun with it.
yeah, yeah. When it comes to like playing guitar with you and Chris, how do you like plan out on who plays what as far as parts? Do you like plan your two to get like guitar, or is to sort of like match or complement each other in any way?
So this one we did for sure. Really, in the beginning, it was just like when in the very beginning, like I kind of wrote everything to be like, okay, we only really need one guitar player. Like I never really wrote harmonies or anything. Um, just because like in the early days of a band, it's like members like like enter and exit all the time. So we were just kind of unsure of like how it was going to go in the beginning. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like keep it really simple. And then this time around, like we like really wanted to like utilize two guitar players doing different things. So like now we have like solos. There's a lot more harmonies. I'm doing leads myself too over like stuff Chris is playing. And normally I'm like the guy that like leads off like riffs, but now Chris is doing that in some of these songs. So it allows me to like do something a little bit different too.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's sort of like your favorite like guitar part on any of your songs from like the two albums that you did?
Um, I would have to say probably like Frozen Soul and Assimilator, because in the chorus of Frozen Soul, I'm doing this like one lead during the chorus. It's like I do that during like the choruses, and then in the next song, Assimilator, I'm doing another like lead that kind of sounds similar to like symbolic era death. Um, and I fucking love death,
Yeah,
and
same. They're the
I,
kings.
yeah, I love death. So to be able to like have that influence in my music a little bit, just because Frozen Soul, of course, everyone always thinks of like Bolt Thrower. But to be able to like have that in there was like really special to me. So like those two moments in particular, I'm like really proud of.
Yeah. And if somebody were to learn like a Frozen Soul song, what song would they suggest to start with?
Um, Man, that's a tough one because I love all of our songs. I would say probably like Best Served Cold, just because it's got like a little bit of everything that we do. Like minus solos, that song doesn't have a solo in it. It's like fast and ripping, and then it's like chuggy and melodic, and then there's an ass whooper at the end. So I mean, it's got a little bit of everything that we do.
Yeah. All right. And I got two more questions for you to sort of wrap this up.
Hmm.
Talk about like from Texas, because Texas probably is like the biggest state in America with like bands like Pantera and of course Stab being Flesh Rot Cognizant. So what is like the whole like metal scene in Texas like?
So the overall scene is fucking like really awesome, man. There's a lot of sick bands from like Austin, San Antonio, Houston, even some like really cool ones in El Paso. There's this band from there called Scum. That's like they're a grindcore band. They've been around for like 20 something years and they're fucking sick. But the whole scene in Texas is just like fucking huge, man, and like everybody like supports each other too. It's not like, oh hey, we're from like Austin or like San Antonio. It's like, oh no, we're from fucking Texas. Like that's like kind of attitude that everybody has. So it's like really sick. Like it was like Necrofire in Houston, like you said, stabbing from like Austin and Houston. San Antonio has like Slaughter Swamp and a whole bunch of like other bands. It's super fucking sick.
All right. And the final question I want to ask you is kind of like your guitar rig. Like, what kind of like guitars that you play, like strings, pedals, amplifiers, all that good stuff?
So I'll show you one of them right now, actually. So I just uh I just got this guitar. So it's a Jackson RR24 in Blue Crackle.
Holy shit, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. So I just got endorsed by Jackson. They sent this to me. So thank you to Jackson for that. But this is like gonna be my main guitar from now on. And I'm working on getting some upgrades for it. I just ordered a new bridge for it, a FU tone, and I'm getting some EMG 81X and 85X for right here. And I'm gonna like switch the knobs around just because I fucking hate having this knob right here when I'm playing. It just gets in the way. Um, but as far as guitar goes, like the guitar I've been using for the past 3 years, I have this BC Rich Ironbird. It's like a custom shop from the 80s. That one has the EMG 81X and 85X pickups. And then from there, I use pretty much like the tried and true combo of like a 6505 and a Mesa cab with V30s. And my pedal setup isn't anything too fancy, just like a tuner. Well, I have a wireless system now that's also a tuner. So I have like a tuner going into Maxon ST9 Pro Plus. So just like a really like girthy tube screamer and a noise gate. Nothing too particularly like fancy, but like it sounds fucking killer to me.
Yeah, awesome. So before we go, I just want to thank you, Michael, for this interview. It's just great to be able to talk with you. Is there just anything else with Frozen Soul you'd like to plug? I know you recently just finished that tour with Black Dahlia Murder and Terror. Is just
Mm-hmm.
any other tours or anything thing for Frozen Soul you'd like to announce if you're allowed to?
So we got a Europe tour coming up in like a month. We're doing like a bunch of the festivals, like Bloodstock and Wacken. And then as soon as we get back, we're doing one show with Lamb of God in Oklahoma City, and then we're doing like a couple more after that with the Acacia Strain. And then we should be announcing our festival, Wrecking Ball Metal Madness, later this week or next week. I'm not sure quite yet. And then to go with that will be a full US tour announcement. So keep your eyes out for that.
Awesome. So thank you for this interview. It's just any final words you want to say to the viewers to wrap this up?
Thanks for supporting. Thanks for watching the interview. Please check out Glacial Domination if you haven't yet. Go pick up a copy of it. Go pick up some merch. FrozenSoulTX.com. Yeah, thanks for listening to me and thanks for chatting with me, man. This is fun.
Awesome. So everybody, Michael from Frozen Soul, we'll see you next time.